Do you think UFOs, the paranormal, weird history, cryptozoology, and outsider art are pretty darn cool? Then you're in the right place. Welcome to High Strangeness with your host, Steve Berg.
The video version. Hello, friends. Welcome back to High Strangeness. Tonight, I have my good buddy, Michael Hughes on. Michael, how are you doing, friend?
I am great, Steve, and it's wonderful to see your face again after it's been months and months, I
It
believe, since
has.
since
It
we were
has.
hanging out.
Well, let's tell everyone. I always like, if I have a personal connection with a guest, I like to tell people how I know you. And last year, Michael and I were both speakers at the wonderful Strange Realities Conference in Nashville, Tennessee, and we got along thick as thieves right away. Michael is a dialed-in groover. He's got great taste in music, and usually when people have great taste in art, I can really, Oh wait, Michael, you disappeared. Can you hear
Oh
me?
shit! Yeah, I can hear
No,
you
it's
fine.
it's okay. I can hear you. I can
Oh,
hear you.
okay, good. Okay, cool.
Good. Hopefully you'll come back. You'll come back. It's okay. It's okay. I'm just imagining. I can see handsome Michael Hughes in my head right now as well. Anyways, we met in Nashville at the Strange Realities Conference, and Michael and I just got along great. We're both speakers. At night, we were out in the parking lot drinking Modelo's till 3 a.m. and just getting into what the meaning of life is. So I am just really thrilled to have my good buddy back on. Have you been well, my friend?
Yeah, I've been good. I got over a case of shingles. That was really fun.
Oh God, that sounds horrible.
Yeah, it was horrible. I was doing I do like every once in a while do qigong exercises and stuff like that. So I'd been doing this kind of routine. It's like, damn, man, my pecs are sore. Like
Ooh.
felt like I'd been bench pressing or something, but it was this weird burning. And I'm like, I've never really felt that from muscle strain before. And yeah, 2 days later, rash pops up. And I was like, oh
Oh.
shit, man. I keep
Well,
seeing these commercials on TV like shingles doesn't care. And I found that out to be very true. Shingles is an asshole.
it really sounds like it. I'm not sure why Shingles would do this to you. You're such a nice person.
Yeah, it's just Shingles is a jerk. That's how I
Yeah,
might rewrite that commercial. But no, other than that, things have been great.
good.
It's Baltimore summer. It's hot and humid and sweltery, and took a trip to the beach to North Carolina Outer Banks,
Oh
and
yeah.
back in the spring, took a tour out to the Pacific Northwest. So, got the Bigfoot
Ooh.
vibe while I was out
Did
there.
you?
Yeah, it's just funny because my kids wanted to go to Forks, because Forks is where the Twilight series of movies was
Ah,
filmed,
sure.
and of course vampires live there because it's the darkest, rainiest place in the continental United States. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just dreary and dark and rainy and kind of beautiful in that
Oh
respect, but they're just Bigfoot stuff everywhere. I mean, there's a Bigfoot
gosh.
store in the center of town. There's Bigfoot crossing signs all over the place. And so my kids were psyched. We went to some of the locations of Twilight, which I've never seen, but so they
Right.
were they were really stoked about that. But for me, it was just all the Bigfoot stuff everywhere out there. It was just so
Well,
cool.
it is interesting, and I've brought this up in my show before, where I feel like, I mean, Bigfoot has, he or she has been in the public eye for a couple decades, or a few decades, or since the '60s, really. But I feel like Bigfoot's really having a moment where it's becoming like this Western culture folk hero.
It really is. It's fascinating. I mean, I remember watching the I forget what the film company that made the movies in the 70s, but the first Bigfoot documentary I saw as a kid, and I was just so blown away. But then it just seemed to fade out of popular culture. You didn't
Right.
hear a lot about Bigfoot, which was why I was so shocked. That it's just everywhere. Like you said, he's become like a cultural icon.
I mean, I think it honestly, like, I have my different theories about it, but I think it's because of like that character Bobo. I think he was such a likable, affable person, and people are like, "Ah, no, man, he makes Bigfoot fun." And like, I've never watched that much of those shows, but I have to admit, I like the cut of that guy's jib. You know, he seems like a fun guy. I'd love to go drinking with him.
Yeah, there was like, Harry and the Hendersons and all that kind of stuff. But I was never like really a Bigfoot guy since I
Right.
was a kid. It sort of fell by the wayside.
Hmm.
It was always peripherally in my, interest area, but just watching it become, he or she or them or they,
Right.
uh, just it, just take off like this again, and seeing it everywhere out there in particular, is just great. I mean,
I
the world
agree.
needs more Bigfoot.
I think so too. I think like weaving mythology and folklore into like greater society has positive effects.
Yeah,
As long as it's not like bad, awful folklore, which there is of that
right.
stuff out there.
Bigfoot with an AR-15, or something.
Well, I mean, that is a thing. Let me tell
I'm
you.
sure. I am sure. Yeah, now that I've said it, I'm like, well, of course that exists.
Of course, they're gonna ruin anything, and by they, you know who I mean, folks. Or do you? I don't know. Do I even know who I mean? Michael, really quick, I saw that you posted yesterday or the other day that you saw the new Talking Heads Stop Making Sense film.
Oh yeah, it's the same movie I used to wear out on a VHS cassette. The Stop
It's so
Making
good.
Sense, but it's like remastered, the sound, and
Mm,
they showed it in IMAX, and so it's this brand new print of the film and from the concert. I think it was like 84 or something. The movie came
mm-hmm.
out, something like that. And it's just to me, it's like going to church.
Yeah.
I just smile, I cry every moment. I'm just ecstatic watching the
Yeah.
band like at their prime, killing it. And David
Yeah.
Byrne, just his weird ass self up there, being himself in his big suit, and
Yep.
it's beautiful. And then afterward, uh, Spike Lee interviewed the band. It's like the first time they've been back together
Whoa.
since the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like 20 some years ago now, something like that.
Amazing.
So seeing them all together and getting along and kind of happy was great. And Spike Lee, you could tell he was feeling it. He's
Yeah.
like, he talked about he used to go see the movie, in New York. And every time it would come around, I would see it, and people would just get up and dance in the aisles.
Mm,
It's just it's that moving. I mean, it
yeah.
literally like it gets you up and moving. So that was a highlight of my
Yeah.
month, week, summer, or whatever. It was just so great to see it again.
Oh, I can imagine. It truly is. I mean, David Byrne, the whole band is so weirdly joyful in that show. It's so beautiful. It's one of the best pieces of produced concert footage. Like, there's The Last Waltz, which is obviously gorgeous to look at. I feel like, but Stop Making Sense is right up there with the best, if not the best, probably.
I do think it's the best.
Yeah.
And the thing was, and what David Byrne said that was really cool is that Jonathan Demme, when he was filming, when he was putting it all together, um, he would focus. He filmed it as if it was almost like a stage play. So he would focus on the individual musicians, but watch their interplay with each other, like it was an
Right.
ensemble stage,
Yeah.
like a theatrical presentation with actors or something. And you can really see that because you see them playing off each other, feeling the music with each other, and it's just so alive. And the love, even though the band's notorious for kind of not getting along all that well,
Right.
especially in later times, which David Byrne apologized for
Mm-hmm.
publicly recently. But you could see, I mean, they're feeling it,
Yeah.
just working off each other, and it's phenomenal. It's a beautiful experience. If you haven't seen it, grab it and watch it.
Yeah, exactly. Pair it with a nice bottle of rosé and maybe a cracker or maybe a fun dip. Make a night of it, folks.
Yeah.
You know what? It got me thinking, Michael, when you posted that. I feel like in the 80s, especially around that era, there was a lot of art school kids forming bands. Devo was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't listen to their music, but I had this like performance art appreciation for Guar. They were art school kids too.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean, like, I think I know your answer, but if you had to save these three bands off a cliff, Guar, Devo, or Talking Heads, these art school kid bands, who would you save?
It would be the Heads. I mean, I
Yeah.
like Devo a lot. Guar, a fun, just
Sure.
crazy show.
Hmm.
But the Heads, I mean, they could hit so many moods in their music,
Yeah.
and from really dark and weird to just like joyously poppy
Yep.
and full of love and fun, things like that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'd grab the Heads before they went off the cliff.
That was the correct answer, so you get 2 points.
All right. Ding ding.
Even though Devo, it's tough for me. If you ask me tomorrow, I might say Devo. That's a mood thing. So I love Devo deeply.
Yeah.
They're so weird and nerd. I mean, it's like the first like nerd math rock. I love them so much. Those
Yep.
guys. So I hate to start off and asking this question, but this is just because I want to know.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get into? And I don't want to label things because I think I may be mislabeling like what your kind of specialty is, but esoteric studies is that a fair way to phrase it?
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, I call myself a magician,
Right.
as opposed to like a witch or something like that, because like it's witchcraft has become such an aesthetic in a way,
Mm-hmm.
with that it's just not my thing.
Yeah.
I'm not like a goth dude. Like goth was like not my scene, things like that.
Right.
Although I loved dark stuff ever since I was a little
Mm-hmm.
kid, but I've always been, I was raised Catholic, so the incense, the candles, all that stuff was really resonant with me as a kid, and I've just always had like sort of a magical approach to life. I think some of us are just sort of wired that way, like I'd play little games with myself, like if I can kick this rock and get it in 3 kicks into the storm drain down there, the girl that I like in second grade will sit next to me, at the assembly, stuff like that. I was always playing these little like mind games and trying to influence probability and crap like that. And it was the 70s, and the 70s were just like, you're soaking in it when it comes to
Right.
the paranormal and weirdness and occultism and all that stuff. Like I used to watch In Search Of with my dad. One of his friends, actually, I was just telling somebody this today. One of his friends managed to get his hands on a 16 millimeter copy of Chariots of the Gods and showed
Whoa.
it in his living room. I'm like 7 or 8 years old with these weird buddies of mine and
Hell
their
yeah.
parents, and we're watching. He pulled out the screen and plugged in the 16 millimeter projector, and we watched Chariots of the Gods. So it was just kind of like I thought it was all normal, and
Right.
even like the scholastic books and stuff like that, where it had stuff about witchcraft and monsters and ghosts, and I would always see the commercial. I think that probably affected me more than anything else was the Man, Myth, and Magic TV commercials for that anthology series. And I never got my hands on the books until I was older. But just looking at these pictures of these like shamans and wizards and Bigfoot and monsters, and all that, like on TV. It was always on TV. I'm like, this is my
Oh,
jam. Like
yeah.
this is where I want to be. Like I want to be immersed in all this weird stuff. And that's, I like I said, I think some of us are kind of wired for it. Like
I
I
agree.
feel like I emerged from my mother's womb and, wanted to see monster movies.
Yep.
It's just it's just it's part of my soul or something.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
just love it.
It's very similar. I had this sort of the same. I did not grow up with like any religion actually, but like I think sometimes like when I was like really young, I remember picking up a Billy Meyer picture book at the library and
uh,
totally just first off, I was very young, but I thought all of it was like 100% real. And I was like walking around to people going like, guys, I mean, we should talk about this. Like, look at these, and everyone's like, well, you're crazy. But I remember like beyond just what it meant and represented to me, at the time, I thought the photographs in terms of artfully speaking, were absolutely drop dead gorgeous.
Oh
Like
yeah.
the guy is a hoaxer, but he is a talented photographer, man. Those
For
Swiss
sure.
countrysides with those like metallic, objects, and he would always choose it like at magic hour, either in the morning you can tell, or it was in the
Uh,
evening. I mean, they are like he must have gone to art school. Maybe he's one of those art school. He should have been in an art school band,
uh,
maybe instead of being a hoaxer. But
yeah.
yeah, I agree. I think the aesthetic, like what you're wired to, not just like with like magic, but even just like what you're drawn to artistically. I feel like the art side of esoterica and the paranormal to me has always been like a big draw.
For sure. And to me, like magic and art are almost indistinguishable. I know Alan Moore has a quote, something like that, that art is magic and magic is art. And it's interesting that we live in a time where magic is kind of having such a resurgence, and also in a time where there's so much art available to us.
Right.
You and I had to go into the local library, for you to find that Billy Mayer book. And
Yep.
I had to pick up my dad's Frank Edwards paperbacks and stuff like that were lying around the house. And it wasn't easy to find this stuff. There
Yep.
was a bit of effort that you had to go through, or sit and wait until In Search Of came on TV at
Right.
8:30 or whatever it was. But there's so much of it now, like that we're just saturated with images and art and
Yep.
music and things like that. That I feel like that's part of the reason why magic is becoming so popular again, is that
Right.
and art changes our consciousness the way magic changes our consciousness, and art can affect us in ways that literally change the path of our lives
Right.
in a sense, uh, uh, whether it's music, whether it's visual art, whether it's movies, whether it's a book that we're reading, things like that. So to me, it's kind of hard to tear them apart. So
Right.
a lot of the magic stuff I do, I try to make it an artistic statement
Mm-hmm.
as much as possible, because I think that's like, in particular, let's sigils as an example. Like
Yep.
some people, will make a sigil and they'll say, "Oh, I'll put a dollar sign here and I'll put like an eyeball over here," and things like that. And that's always felt a little off to me. Like it's just like jamming literal stuff together and
Mm-hmm.
trying to make a piece of art out of it. Whereas something that's abstract, like, I don't know, like Blue Oyster Cult's logo, the little symbol
Yeah.
on Blue Oyster Cult. I'm saying like that, if it's something that's a little abstract and you don't quite know what the hell it means or what it is, that to me is more powerful than just taking real elements and trying to cobble them together. And it's yeah.
Right. Sometimes I wonder, like, if the point to all, like, the high strangeness, whatever paranormal, the phenomenon, whatever you want to call it, is to be a creativity generator. Like Greg Bishop has, this kind of idea that UFOs are a cosmic art project, and I really love that. I can't. I
Yeah.
wish I could expound upon that further. We'd have to have Greg do that. But like, I think that idea is very interesting, and one that like I feel like we should be teasing apart a bit more, because I kind of think there's something to it. Even like kind of going back to Renaissance paintings. When I remember when I was studying art in college, they would talk about how a lot of these artists would talk about how they were like divinely inspired when they were doing these works.
Yeah, for sure. I love that metaphor too, of the strangeness being a creativity generator, or
Mm-hmm.
or an art project of sorts. I love that, and I've always loved hearing him talk about that. And it makes a lot of sense to me, because what does art do? Like, art changes our consciousness. Art makes us think in different ways. Art
Mm-hmm.
puzzles, especially, you would talk about like the movies of David Lynch, which I think,
Yes.
come as close to generating that magical state that a ritual or something could also generate, because it's not transparent. It's very opaque,
Yep.
and it subverts things. So it's similar to the way, like, um, a lot of the surrealist art. A
Yeah.
lot of the surrealist artists were also into magic and
Mm-hmm.
occultism and things like that. And that's because we're playing with the boundaries of perception, of consciousness. We're taking symbols that are jarring or don't quite make sense. And that does something that weirdos like us love.
Right. No, you're so right. I mean, like even taking someone as like, mainstream as Salvador Dali, it seems like he was painting from a perspective of the other world or at the astral plane. Like you look at a Dali painting, for example, or even a Lynch movie, it does not feel like these are images pulled from the real world we live in.
Right. It's
It
like a
it,
dream.
it is.
It's dreamlike. It's coming from another place, but it's another place that feels real.
Yes. Yes. And it feels
And
familiar in a way too.
exactly, like, I've had this. I know a lot of talked about this with a lot of people, but a lot of people have dream locations that they go back to, that
Hmm.
they revisit. And that's fascinating to me. For the longest time, I kept dreaming. Whenever I would dream, I'd be in a convention center. Like, this,
Right?
this
Weird.
sucks. Why the hell am I in this like boring convention center? Brain, take me to another planet, or or a
Yeah.
jungle or something like that. Why are you putting me in this convention center? But the more I was there, like the more I'm like, okay, it's just started to become real and started to become like this other place that I go to sometimes.
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
not not by my own will, but for some reason I end up there, and
Yeah.
that's that kind of weird art, and or a paranormal or UFO experience. It takes us out of the everyday. It takes us somewhere strange and unsettling,
Right.
and and that's, some of us love that feeling.
Yeah.
It's,
I
some of
I
us
do.
like to be scared and unnerved to a certain extent,
Yes.
not too far.
Yeah.
um
Yeah. Right up to the threshold of madness is where I go.
right. Well, if I'm not screaming at the top of my lungs and running around, pulling my clothes off or something, that
Exactly.
it's
And
okay.
you brought up Lynch earlier, and obviously, I talk about David Lynch quite a bit on this show because I he's kind of my touchstone artist, or cinematically speaking, and I do believe that Twin Peaks in particular, especially season 3,
Oh man.
feels like the closest I've ever had to like a high strangeness experience. Like I've never encountered the occupants of a UFO or seen a cryptid or seen an apparition walk by me, but I have
Mhm.
watched Twin Peaks season 3, and I feel like, okay, I get what you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, the same. I mean, I just started rewatching that for
oh
the first time since the original run, and that show saved my summer.
yeah,
It was the first summer that there was a guy in the Oval Office that was, a lot of us were not real happy with,
yeah, yep,
and it was depressing, and the news, it was just like a fire hose of shit
yep,
every day, one horrible thing after another happening. But every night that came on, I sat down and I was just completely saved. I was
yeah,
taken away. I was just, you know, just soaked in this strange beauty that
yeah,
only Lynch can do the way he does. And it
yep,
really saved me. It was something I looked forward to for, what was it, 18 episodes or something
yep,
like that. So it was like
yep.
18 weeks where no matter how shitty everything else was, I had that to look forward to and have my mind blown like every week. Always a moment where I just would get chills and
Yeah,
just in awe of
yeah.
what was happening.
I really that show exhilarated me like nothing else. I totally echo what you were saying. I was going. I mean, like I was so down in the dumps in that particular era. It was a tough time for a lot of us,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it really
truly.
was. I mean, I just remember thinking to myself, like, just make it to next week. You got another episode. That's all you got to do. Hold on, buddy.
Same, man. Yep, exactly, exactly.
Oh, it's so nice we have that, and it's so highly rewatchable. It's even like it's rewarding in a whole different way. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna just jump to this question because
Oh
I
yeah,
do
please.
definitely want to talk about this. You mentioned
Hmm.
um, the president from 2016 to 2020.
Hmm.
And Michael, you kind of had one of these viral social media moments, my friend. Can you
Yeah.
please tell my listeners a little bit about that? Because I love this so much. I love it.
Yeah, I've always been kind of an activist. I was into no nukes when I was a kid. As a teenager, I got this hippie dude at a I went away one summer to like a gifted and talented thing at a college in Maryland, and I came back. My parents were like, "What the hell did we send him there for?" Because I'm like no nuke buttons. I met this like groovy hippie guy who
Yeah.
played the guitar and sang folk songs. It was real into no nukes and stuff like that. So like I became an activist, after this experience. But I've always kind of been an activist anyway. Like I just hated seeing somebody get picked on, or I hated injustice. It always just chafed me really hard when I'd see
Right.
something that I thought was unfair or unjust. So so I've always been an activist. So when the former guy won the election, I was hanging out with a friend of mine, and we were drinking some beer and playing music and doing all that stuff. There might have been a little burning of herbal substances involved
I
too, but
mean, if there wasn't, you were doing it wrong.
exactly. So I'm like, man, we got to do something. We have to like do something, raise money, give it to Planned Parenthood or immigrants or ACLU or something like that. And I had used to be a DJ. I used to you know play dance music and stuff like that. I was a wedding DJ for a long time.
Beautiful.
And so I'm like, maybe we'll have just like a big party. Because I always think like when people are down and beaten down and depressed and feeling crushed by the world, it's always good to like play music and dance and
Yeah.
hang out. So I was thinking, have a big party, something like that. But for some reason, I started thinking, what if I could get like a lot of people to do a ritual,
Yes.
like a magical ritual, and do a ritual to like stop this guy and what he's doing. And because I knew like witchcraft was kind of popular and things like that. Excuse me. So I said that to my friend. I'm like, what about like a ritual that I could publish online and just ask people to do it at the same time? Because I always believe like when people do things together at the same time and has like an energy about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I start like riffing on this, and my friend's like, dude, I mean, I don't know. That's a pretty dumb idea. Like I really like you've had some real winners over the years, but this one really takes the cake for probably one of the dumbest ideas you've ever had. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I put it together. I wrote this ritual, and I'm like, well, what about a binding ritual? It's like one of the oldest. Like we find these curse tablets in Greece that people used to write like, I hate that asshole. He stole my horse
Right.
on a piece of lead, and then they throw it in a well, simultaneously cursing the guy and also like poisoning their drinking water and things like. Well, they didn't know. I mean, poisoning their own drinking water because they didn't
Right.
know that
Right.
lead was toxic. But
Yes.
so these curse tablets were a thing, and I'd always been fascinated by them. And I thought, what about a binding spell on this
What is
guy?
a binding spell? I'm not sure if I know what one is.
Well, I mean, it depends on who you ask. I always look at it as, a curse is one thing. Like, may your penis rot, turn gangrenous and fall off, and your daughters stab you.
Right.
Just curses are curses, and everyone knows what a curse is. But a binding spell, is a little not so mean. It's just like
Mm-hmm.
stop the person from doing something bad. And
Okay.
clearly this dude was doing as much badness as he possibly could. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought, well, how about a binding spell? So I, really brainstormed it. I thought about my own magical training and practice over the years, and I looked at historical stuff, and I just wrote, it just poured out of me one night. Like I got inspired and just wrote this ritual. But also, I wanted to have humor in it because I like humor. Like
Yes.
yourself, like comedy is is healing.
Mm-hmm.
It's soul nourishing stuff to laugh.
Yeah,
To laugh
I
is
think so.
to laugh is what makes us whole again in the face of bad things. So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to put some humor in it too. So like part of the ritual was you would use like a baby carrot to represent his small orange, insert noun here. Uh, so there was like a baby carrot in it, and at the end of the ritual was you would laugh. Like you would burn a picture of this guy, and I always think like burning an image of someone is that's why people do things like that at protests. Like burning
Right.
a symbol is so powerful of a
Mm-hmm.
statement. So I found like the most unflattering photo of him, which is hard to find the most unflattering photo of
You can.
the
I
dude.
mean, there's a lot to
Yeah.
choose from.
Yeah. So I found like the most unflattering photo where it looks like he's like having a spasm or something like that. And so we would burn that photo, and as it was burning, say, "You're fired, you're fired, you're fired," 3 times, like turning his own line around against him, but also a little bit of humor. And then at the end of the ritual, just laugh. Because part of the reason is because narcissists hate being laughed at. Like they
Yes.
hate that more than anything. Like
Yep.
the emperor's new clothes sort of ideal, that someone comes up and laughs at these people that think they're so powerful and whatever, and it just deflates them. They can't stand people laughing at them. So I wanted comedic elements in the ritual, but I also wanted to be serious, and to have that laughter at the end. It's like a liberating, and the beauty of suddenly, like I posted this thing on Medium, and within minutes it started to go through the roof. I
Yeah.
was watching the hit count, and I would literally refresh my browser, and it went up by like 300 views, things like that.
Dang.
And it just kept building and building. And then I had TV people calling me, and and CNN in particular. They were like, "We want to film this. Where can we come and film you?" And Fox News is all over it. I mean, it blew up. This isn't like 1 day, 2 days. And I'm sitting at my 9 to 5 office job. Like I had to close my door and put a little sign on it, like on phone, because I'm juggling phone calls from like reporters and media and all this stuff. And I'm like, holy shit, how did this happen? I mean, I'm still kind of boggled. I had people on Facebook saying I was walking around the grocery store in London and heard someone talking about this ritual. I mean, it went globally viral. So the best part of it was the TV folks just wanted to film people doing it.
Yeah.
But most of the people I knew that were doing it didn't want like a TV crew there. So like I don't want lunatics coming after me. And I was kind of
Fair.
afraid of that too, because suddenly
Yeah.
I'm this like public figure who's cursing the most powerful man on the planet.
Yeah. This progressive sorcerer.
Yeah, right. So it just kept building and building and building. And finally, this is one of my favorite stories about this whole thing. Like the 2 days before, and I'd set a date to do it, right? I set a date on like the waning crescent moon, like the very last sliver of the moon, just because I thought that
Yes.
was aesthetically beautiful and powerful of an image. So CNN kept calling me, and they're like, "We really want to film someone doing this. Can we film you?" And I'm like, "I don't know if I want to do that." So finally, I got so sick of them asking me. I said, "Guess what? I hear some people are going to do it at Trump Tower in Manhattan." I said, "Go there and film them." And I just lied. Like I just flat out lied just to give them something to do. So the night of this ritual, like my head is my mind is blown for days. All I'm doing is like dealing with this sudden this thing. I mean, it just went from this stupid idea, as my friend said, to this global thing that was going to happen. And so we got together with my friends in a backyard, strangely enough, about 100 feet from a Fox TV news station. They didn't know it. We didn't tell them, but I just thought that was funny. So we had a big fire and stuff like that. So, but these are my friends. So I'm like, I need to get some alcohol if I'm going to lure my
Yes.
friends to do something at midnight. So I go to the liquor store and I'm buying all this alcohol, and the girl's like, well, she's like 20 something. She goes, "Yeah, it looks like you're having a party tonight." And I went, "Yeah, I'm binding the president." She goes, "Oh, do you have the unflattering photo?" And I just looked at her, and she's like, "Yeah, me and my friends are doing it tonight too." So,
What?
and uh, it, that there's that gif of the guy's head like exploding that just loops and
Yeah.
loops and loops. That's what I felt like. Just boom, my head just kept exploding in moments like that. So we do the ritual. It's like 40 of us in this backyard with this big bonfire, live streaming it on Facebook. My phone blowing up with people from all, like, we're doing it too tonight, and like people in my kids' school were doing it with their kids. It
Unbelievable.
was so mind blowing. And then at the end, I was just exhausted. Like, finish this ritual. Everybody's cheering. We laugh at the end. Just belly laughing. Everyone's laughing. And then I just flopped down on a log near the fire, and my friend came up with his phone. He goes, "Look at this," and he holds out his phone, and it's CNN, and there are witches sitting at the foot of Trump Tower doing so I made that up, and it happened anyway, and CNN got their footage, and these women sitting burning pictures of him with their little candles, and I mean, it was just. And then it didn't stop, because the whole idea was to do this monthly until he was driven from office. We did that every single month until we even did it after he lost, because we did it up through after January 6th. And I'm like, all right, we can stop doing this now.
He is bound, folks.
Every month. That's what was mind blowing to me, is it's so many people kept this up. It was a monthly ritual, and it was at midnight, so it's not convenient for everybody, because sometimes the sliver of the crescent moon fell on a Monday or Tuesday night. But people
Right.
did it. People all over the world continue to do it for years, for 7 years, I think, every single month, until he finally was forced out of office. And all the naysayers out there, all these people are like, "I am a magician, and that is the
Yeah.
dumbest ritual. That's not magic, and you don't know how to do magic, or harmful magic will come back on you threefold," and all this stuff. And I'm like, screw you, man. And
Yeah.
this will never work. That's stupid. One very prominent druid magician has spent years telling people how awful of a magician I am and how terrible, and this would never work. I'm like, bro, the whole goal of this ritual was to get him out of power. Guess what?
Yeah.
It worked. I don't
It
care what
worked,
you say,
man.
man. It worked, man.
Michael, and I kind of have to say, like, and I know this is maybe a blurry thing to say, but like, it almost seems like before he was even driven out, with all the kind of results with the meeting the person on the liquor store, the witches at the tower, like there was this unintended symptom of magic that came out as this was coming together, because like a lot of people write stuff on Medium, and a lot of people were probably like writing different protest ideas and this and that. But why did this one catch on? It's like
Yeah.
it's there's something amazing, and I think also a beautiful thing you gave people is this sense of participatory like action to like look, what do you do as an individual when the government is corrupt? It's really hard. You can join a group, you can protest, you can give money, but at the end of the day, you realize it's not making a ton of difference. It's good, better than doing nothing. But this actually, I feel like, put it in people's hands. It didn't cost them any money, and it probably made them feel better, like laughter does. So, what a
Yeah.
beautiful thing you put out there, I think.
Yeah. There were lots of rewards to this that I didn't quite expect initially. Um, uh, one of them was giving people a taste of magic, because so many people said to me, I've never done anything like this, but fuck it, I'll do any.
Yeah,
I mean, they were desperate, so they did
right.
any. But the fact that so many people, I think, got a taste of what like doing a ritual, how powerful that feels. And some of the criticism I got was, oh, this is slacktivism, man, and uh, to me, that was absolutely not true, because all the people I knew that did this ritual, like they were going to the protest marches,
Right.
they
Right.
were writing their Congress people,
Yeah.
they were doing the mundane work. But what this did, and I really didn't expect this, it was like a recharging of batteries,
Hmm.
because you start to feel so powerless when every day you turn on the news, you open up the paper, you open up your web browser, and it's just like, oh my God, can it
Yeah.
get worse? And then the next day
Yeah.
you open it up and it's worse.
It's
And
worse.
it's just, and you feel so powerless despite doing all that mundane stuff. A lot of people burn out. Like you just, you give up, or you say, okay, I'm getting so many emails to write, sign petitions and all that crap. So it's easy to get really burnt out and
Hmm.
frustrated and just say, I'm just not going to do this anymore. But having a ritual like that every month, so many people told me, and I felt this myself, is a benefit for me too, is that suddenly you got your power back.
Yeah.
You're watching this image burn, you're laughing, but at the same time you're calling on like the elements and spirits to be with you and to aid you in stopping this dangerous stuff that's happening, this kind of movement into fascism and
Right.
authoritarianism and ugliness and hate. So doing this ritual, like I would do this ritual as tired as I was sometimes at midnight on a Tuesday night, and I'd feel better. And
Yeah.
that taught me the importance of when you are an activist or just involved in something, the importance of having a ritual to sort of to just recharge, to
Hmm.
re-energize yourself, to pull your power back, because so many things suck your power away. The
Yeah.
TV, the internet, social media, arguing with your uncle at Thanksgiving, all that stuff just sucks the life out of you. But then you just do this ritual that takes a few minutes and you feel good again. You feel like,
Yeah.
oh man, I can get up tomorrow and do this again. And
Right.
that was unexpected to me. I wasn't, I hadn't thought it through that much, but that was the most rewarding aspect of this whole thing. The fact that doing this simple ritual, but powerful, I think, and just to get yourself back in the groove, just to get
Right.
your mojo back
Yeah.
when life is just so hard and excruciating. And that was it. That, and the fact that knowing so many people, like the people who said, fuck this, I've never done anything like this before, I'm going to do it. What do I
Right.
have to lose? And then
Yeah.
might have said, oh, that was cool, maybe I
Yeah.
could do a different kind of ritual for something
Exactly.
else now. Oh, I'll pick up a book and read about this stuff. So to
Right.
me, that's what came out of it.
And so you really did not know when you were creating this ritual, and immediately, like, when you were writing this in your flow state and it was all just pouring out and it was feeling great, but you did not really think there was going to be this kind of cathartic quality about what you were doing.
Not at all. I
Right.
thought of it almost like we were talking earlier, it's like an art project.
Hmm. Yeah.
And, but I believe magic is more than art. But like I said earlier, I think magic is hard to pull out of art, and vice versa. So I thought of this as like a way, and I thought maybe 20 or 30 people. Like I thought maybe my weirdo friends would find it fun, but it really became. And what also blew me away, I'm not a witch. Like I practiced witchcraft for a while, like back in the 90s. I picked up like a Scott Cunningham book and Wicca and all that, but just didn't really stick. Like I was more like different kind of magically driven. But the way witches like embrace this, and the way the whole thing became witches against Trump. oh shit, I said his name. Witches against that former guy. And the fact that he would say witch hunt so much.
Yes.
And I'm like, we're getting to him, this witch
Yeah.
thing. And I even made this little meme, and it's this little like clip art of a little girl Halloween dressed up like a witch with a broom. And I was like, every time he says witch hunt, a baby witch gets her broom.
Yeah.
So every time he would tweet it, I'd drop it on Twitter. Every
Oh.
time he'd say witch hunt, it's a witch hunt, I'd
Oh
pop that
man.
little meme in there. But so it was beautiful. Like it became, and like witches have always been pretty active because a lot of them have been from marginalized communities and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But to see them embrace this and become the face of like the resistance in a way, and to see people start to link the idea of witchcraft and magic and power, especially like that feminine aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
uh, to resistance, to political resistance. And that, that led to me thinking, oh, maybe I'll write a book about this, and
Yes.
going into all aspects of how people have resisted power and resisted authoritarianism through time, from like Haitian enslaved people in Haiti rising up using voodoo and things like that, to Gerald Gardner and the witches who did magic to stop Hitler from crossing the
Mm-hmm.
English Channel and invading England. So that as I discovered, there's a lot of this was new to me. I'm like, there's like a whole stream of this stuff.
Right.
So that blew my mind too, and it just led to just more and more exploration of how magic has been used by the powerless throughout time.
Right. Okay, this is great because this brings me to a question I really wanted to ask you. And like I don't have any quantifiable way to measure this or prove this point I want to make, but like I feel that since, that era, what we're talking about, the 2016, 2017, that there has been a noticeable I'm gonna borrow this from Ren Collier, but a global weirding where I
Yeah.
feel like the interest in the paranormal. I mean, like, I guess even UFOs, kind of, but that might be more
Mm-hmm.
the New York Times article. But
Mm-hmm.
witchcraft, magic, tarot, all this stuff. In my lifetime, I don't ever remember all this stuff being this big and popular.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, and you probably have some, like, I think you were just kind of touching upon that historically, where when societies are pressed down and, being screwed over and heading in the wrong direction, is this something that tends to happen where the occult becomes more mainstream?
Yeah, I think it's very cyclical. And if you look back, I think the best sort of mirror to what's happening now is the 60s and 70s.
Hmm.
So you had the Vietnam War, you had the civil rights movement, you had feminism. All of these things were like exploding into consciousness and into the day-to-day lives of people. So it was like massive cultural change. At the same time, there was a lot of crazy political, people were being drafted and sent off to die in Vietnam, and that
Right.
was freaking out America, rightly, as it should. And we had Nixon and Watergate things, and of course the assassinations, the Kennedy assassinations and Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination, things like that. So at that same time is when you started seeing the occult. You start seeing people reading tarot cards. You start seeing witchcraft. A lot of sort of new agey stuff started taking off back then. And the occult and rock and roll, as you know, as a music guy,
Right.
like the explosion of occult rock with, bands like Coven and Black Widow and then Black Sabbath and things like that. So I think it's cyclical, but it also happens in response to the world.
Right.
And when people, and I don't necessarily think this is like the key thing, but when people feel a lack of control or when they feel like the world is kind of going to shit, they try to find their own power in
Hmm.
ways especially when they're disenchanted with institutions.
Right.
The government is failing, sending people to die in Vietnam, and black children are getting screamed at and spit on when they're trying to go to an integrated school. All that stuff is just shaking people up, and I just feel like we're going through that cycle again,
Yeah.
and this time it's a little different. This time you see, um, again, it's almost, I feel like things have polarized in an extreme way that's very different now, with
Hmm.
very outright, like, blood and soil fascist types
Yeah.
on one end of the pole, and then you've got people who are really pushing boundaries, like, of gender and things like that haven't been seen before. The trans rights and things is a beautiful thing. It's like we're
Hmm.
realizing that humans exist on a really broad spectrum,
Right.
and people that have been so marginalized for so long are finally saying, "I'm tired of this shit. I want to be who I
Yes.
want to be.
Yeah.
I feel like a girl, so that's who I am. So
Absolutely.
screw
Why
you
should
if
they
you
be
tell me I
quiet
was
about
born a
it?
boy." Right,
I
right.
completely
So
agree.
it's a really interesting. We've got this expansiveness in a lot of ways, and especially too in the same way, like, there's lots of mirroring going on, like the civil rights movement, and now we've got Black Lives Matter, um, which is trying to take that and say, okay, well, yes, in many ways, Black and brown people are more part of society, and we might work at the same place as you, but there's still issues we got to iron out.
Right.
And so there's this expansive cultural expansiveness, but then there's this reactionary element too. And I feel like it's so extreme that it's it's kind of creating this vacuum into which, people are saying, how do I find my power amid all of this? And just like the 60s and 70s, it's happening again. It's just a cycle. Like, we're just
Yeah.
turning on that wheel. And here we are again. We're at the point where people are disillusioned with institutions. They're scared. They don't know who to believe. And especially, when it comes to spirituality and religion and things, people are done. Like, people don't go
Yeah.
to church. Any church,
Yeah.
people going to church, like, the numbers just keeps dropping, and the largest demographic is the spiritual but not religious, because people still want that spiritual feeling. They want to feel connected to something,
Right.
and that's why. But they don't want to go to the Catholic Church because they see what's happened with the
Yeah.
pedophile scandals, stuff like
Yes.
that, and they realize they don't need an intermediary to feel that spiritual sense of connection. And that's why these new religious movements and witchcraft and astrology and new thought and things like that are so grabbing people right now, because they've lost faith,
Hmm.
and they're saying, I've lost, quote unquote, faith as it's associated with churches and synagogues, things like that, but I still feel something and I need to
Yeah.
connect. How do I do that? And they
Right.
realize they can. They can do it.
Right.
There's DIY
Yes.
spirituality.
It's the Ian MacKay version of spirituality, man. Do it yourself. Start your own group.
Exactly.
Charge $5 a show. Like, I do think sometimes people who don't know about magic, like I have my weirdo friends, and then I have, like, friends from other parts of my life who just don't care or know much about this stuff.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes I was having this conversation with a friend who isn't into this stuff, but respects my interest. And he was, when I was describing him kind of this stuff about, like, hey, I think the world's getting weirder, and I think it's a great thing. And he was kind of saying, like, he didn't say this outright, but I think what he was getting at is that, like, well, people are seeking more to disassociate from the world. And I
Mm.
understood what he was talking about. Like, yeah, maybe, but I kind of disagree, because I do think I think people want to infuse more control in their life, and magic and these ideas we're talking about is a way to do it.
Yeah, it's a way to feel more connected.
Mm-hmm.
That's what blew me away by that binding ritual and why it got so powerful. It wasn't a dissociation at all. It was an integration. It pulled people back into their life.
Yeah.
It pulled their
Yep.
power back. It wasn't, I'm just getting lost in some mystical fantasy thing. It's the exact opposite of that.
Right.
And that's what magic can do. It's not an escape hatch. It's a way to be more present. That's the way I
Mm-hmm.
think of it. The thing about rituals, though, there's more science coming out. If you look at a basketball player and he's getting ready to make some free throws, they have little rituals they do. And they've studied
Yeah.
this. Those guys, they might bounce the ball 3 times, then they might bounce it one more time, then take the shot. If you have a ritual, you do better.
Exactly.
Rituals actually make your performance better, not just in sports. They've tested this over and over again. Having a little ritual you do, whether it's doing anything from, a word game to playing a professional match of tennis, if you
Yeah.
add a little ritual to it, it improves the outcome. So
Yeah.
ritual is wired into us, and it's wired into us because it works.
Yeah.
It just adds a little bit of an edge, and even little
Yeah.
kids understand that. They understand that a ritual works. And
Right.
so to me, that's why when I look at magic and someone might say that, oh, it's just a way of escape and you're just living in a fantasy, to me it's not. To me it's actually bringing improvement. It's making me more involved in things around me. It's making me feel more connected. If I do a ritual and I know there's 1,000 other people doing it at the same time and we're all saying the same words, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
And the fact that rituals have practical effects in our lives, I'm like, why aren't more people doing it?
Right.
you know?
I know. I know. Well, I mean, if you even think about this, I mean, I kind of like, and I'm going to sound like an old man here, but like, I really think art is complemented by ritual in a big way. I mean, if you even think about like growing up, riding to a movie theater or a video store, you walk
Mhm.
in, you get the popcorn, you give someone a ticket, they rip it in half. You walk into this room, which is another world. It's dark. And then magic appears in a screen. I feel like sometimes art is too easily consumed and brought to you. And the journey, and like this, I know it's making me sound like an old man, but I still go to record stores
Mhm.
because I love the ritual of like combing through the vinyl, finding, intending on getting this record, but I find three others that I didn't even know I wanted. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the ritual, it's exciting, and then I associate that ritual with that piece of art, and it makes it even more powerful.
Exactly. Yeah, and just look at how theater came out of ritual,
Mm-hmm.
and we still love to watch people play roles that don't exist. It's this ritualized entertainment,
Yep.
and we love it. Like it blows our minds. It transports us, and, and it's all fake.
Yeah.
It's one thing
Yep.
that's why I love novels and books so much too. Is you really enter a trance
Yeah.
when you're swept up in something, even a different kind of trance than when you're watching a movie. And I totally
Yep.
agree, like that trip to the theater, getting the popcorn, putting the butter on it, getting in your seat, just getting ready is part of that experience too. But when you're reading something, and Stephen King said this in his book on writing, and it still blows my mind, and it seems the most like obvious thing, but writing and reading is telepathy at a distance.
Mm-hmm.
It's through time and space, because I've written a couple novels, and about weird stuff, of course, because
Yeah, of course.
I can't not write about the stuff that I'm fascinated with and scary stuff.
Yeah.
But so I wrote these novels, and I was reading his book when on writing, as it kind of is what made me get off, or not, I shouldn't say get off my ass, sit on my ass and pound out a novel and try to be a novelist. But the thing he says is like, he's like, I'm writing this now and I'm sitting in my room, and there is a box, and in that box there is a rabbit, and on the back of that rabbit in red paint is a question mark. And he's like, I'm sitting here on, January 8th, 1990 or whatever it was when he wrote it, but I don't know where you are, but you're
Yeah.
somewhere and you're seeing this right now. Like, you through these little squiggles on this piece of paper that's sitting in front of you or screen or whatever, you're seeing that rabbit. Now, you're seeing it a little different. You might see the box a little differently, but he's like, this is telepathy.
Yeah.
This is, I'm showing you something through little squiggles that exist in my mind right now, but it's going to exist in your mind wherever and whenever you are. And that just blew my mind.
Yeah, me too. That's amazing. That really is. That's incredible. I love that so much.
And it's like, well, duh, yeah, that's what reading is. But when you sit and
Yeah.
think about it, it's profound. It's just absolutely profound. It is telepathy. It's violating time and space. It's thoughts traveling through time and
Yeah.
space. Yeah, and
It's true.
manifesting.
It's true. I mean, like when you deconstruct art and then you deconstruct magic, I bet a lot of people couldn't tell what you were talking about. Like,
For
like you
real.
said,
Yep.
like when you see theater and you see good theater, I should say,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but you see these actors on stage and you are obviously if you like pull yourself out and stop, go, oh yeah, those are actors on stage. But I've seen
Right.
so many plays. I've been in plays where you are convinced what they're portraying is real.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
And
there, man. You're
yeah,
feeling it. You're crying with them. You're
yes,
terrified. You're anxious, feeling what they're feeling. And though though the city behind them might just be like a scrim with abstract blocks on it, that's a city.
yeah,
You're there in a city as far as your consciousness is. That's where they are. And
yeah.
yeah, it's mind blowing to me. I mean,
I, I, I agree. I completely agree. And I think like you're a writer, you're an artist, and it's so funny. I keep on saying this, but nearly every person I've had on my show does some kind of art. Like that I've had on my show, and I don't think that obviously was not. I'm not screening people out like only artists can come on my show, but it's just turning out that way where even if they don't like do art, they're very deep appreciators. And if you're a deep
yeah,
appreciator of the arts, then you're an artist to me.
right.
And it seems like people who are into 40ana, high strangeness, whatever you want to call it, the esoteric occult, they are. I don't know if I've ever met anyone who isn't deeply interested in art or does some kind of art as well.
For real, same, man. Yeah, it's and I mean, there's so much out there now too,
Hmm.
for people into weirdness. It's almost, how when you're if it's strange for me and probably strange for you and probably strange for a lot of us to see these things that were such little niche topics that we had to go out of our way to find,
Yeah,
that we
yeah,
had to wait around for a week to watch on TV, or hunt down at the library, and then after you've read the 4 books on UFOs, you have to find another library to get
yes,
it. And it was always marginal. It was always again, there were peaks of popularity, and this stuff has always sort of had drawn certain demographic, I guess.
hmm,
But now it's exploded so much that I can't, like, it used to be like I could kind of keep up on the weird stuff.
right,
And then the internet came along, and for a while it was still because you had to go to like your little dial-up news groups and shit like that.
yeah,
But it's overwhelming now. Like, I can't, I couldn't even tell you, I so many podcasts
yes,
and movies and TV shows and books, that it's strange to see
yeah,
this abundance, this wealth of this stuff that used to be so treasured and scarce.
yeah,
And it's it's kind of disheartening in a way. I mean,
hmm,
it's it's kind of snobby, I'm sure, and it's like the guy who, oh, I saw Rush back in 1982, man, and that was when they were at their peak, and what, and
Yeah.
but so there is an element of that, but it's kind of, I don't know, it's like there's a wealth of stuff, but it's also Sturgeon's law that when there's a wealth of stuff, 99% of it is shit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's even harder to find the 1% now because we're just so inundated with it. And I wish I had, if I could listen to all the paranormal and UFO and weird podcasts that I would like to listen to, I would never get any. I couldn't have a job. I
No.
couldn't have a
No.
family or a relationship. So it's weird.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming, and I think it's also the thing that, and I'm guilty of this. We're all guilty of this. Is that it's so easy to make content now,
Yes.
and everybody's doing it.
Yep.
Or as
True.
the little rhyme when I was a kid was like, everybody's doing it, picking their nose and chewing it. I don't know why that just popped in my head. But so it's kind of, I'm a little overwhelmed, and I'm a little unsure what I think of
Yeah. Well,
the weirding, of the global weirding. I'm not
I
sure.
hear you. Yeah, well, I think we're kind of in the in the midst of it, so we'll see how it plays out. Because
Yeah.
you're right, there is kind of almost the same problem I had as a kid. Because like I was super into this stuff, like you, just growing up.
Hmm.
I was wired to be weird, I think.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
what it did, it really made me this voracious reader. Because the
Yeah.
only way I could get the information I was like just so hungry for was by reading books. There
Yep.
wasn't TV shows and things on the internet to watch. So it actually like I credit uh like my love of the weird for making me probably a much more intelligent person. Like I
Yes.
don't know if I was
Exactly.
gonna get there on my own, with
Yeah.
other interests in my life. Like I've always loved art and stuff like that, but I don't always feel the need to read about art
Hmm.
voraciously.
Yeah.
But with high strangeness, you had to do it. So
Yeah.
there was this kind of like journey of searching the stuff out, and now we're almost in this. We're in the journey as well, but we're having to sift through millions of options,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
equally daunting. I think, like you
Yeah,
said. So
and there's so much garbage. That
yes,
Sturgeon's law thing again, and it takes time to wade through it.
right,
It's, I can't, if I see a video on YouTube and it's like 2 hours long, I can't. I
no,
don't know. I almost never have the time to invest in that. I don't have a commute in my car, so,
right,
and I've got like a family and a job that keeps me pretty busy, and my own
yeah,
stuff that I'm working on. So I can barely find time to pop in and listen to a podcast here and there
I hear
because
you.
so it's, and at the same time there's so much misinformation and
Hmm.
disinformation out there, and that's something I've been focused on for years and years and years now, is just how conspiracy culture has just permeated all of the stuff that we like, and
Yeah,
how it's gotten so toxic and dark,
yep,
and so it's just hard. I can't
yep.
imagine myself as a kid nowadays with all of this stuff to watch. Would
Oh,
I would I have picked up all these books and read the books that I read? Probably not. I'd probably be watching YouTube videos that may be
yep,
absolute garbage, but that
yep,
might appeal to me, or the algorithm might feed them to me. So
yep.
the global weirding is like a beautiful thing. I look around like, my peeps, more of my peeps.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, ooh, but that person, man, they're really spewing some nasty stuff out of there. Or,
Yeah,
oh, that person's aligned with some like Nazis, and
yeah,
geez, I didn't know that. And
yeah,
so I don't know. I don't know.
yeah.
I have no answers. I'm just like throwing that out there because when we
No,
talk
I
to,
hear you.
it's the global weirding. It's got a bad side too, and
It sure
I'm not
does.
sure where we're going, if
Yeah,
we're going in a good direction or not. So damn, I don't know.
we're gonna find out.
That we will.
I am. Yes, we will. So I have. I am gonna completely switch gears here, and
Awesome.
because I have to mention this. You, my friend, were in one of the most treasured American artist, John Waters. You were in one of his films. Please, come on, tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, I filled out a little card in an art movie theater in Baltimore when I was like, God, how old was I then? I was like 19, out of college, just fucking around, smoking too much weed, drinking beer every night with my buddies, going nowhere. And so I went to see a movie, and there's a little box like, "Hey, would you like to be in a John Waters movie?" Like, shit, I love John Waters, man. I
Hell
mean,
yes.
I've idolized the guy since I discovered his movies in my teens, and I'm in Baltimore, so he's kind of like the Pope.
Yeah.
And so I filled out this little card and got a call back, and they said, "Hey," I went and saw his casting agent, Pat Moran, who's an awesome woman. And she's like, "Okay, show up at this high school 2 weeks from now." And so I show up at the high school. They give me a haircut, almost like a short wiffle cut, and like, you're going to be in a dodgeball scene in this movie Hairspray.
Hell yes.
So I saw Divine and was just tongue tied. Couldn't really say anything. I met Ricky Lake when Ricky Lake was no one. And so I'm like, this is great. I'm in my 20s. All these other young people are in this movie, and we're hanging out and having fun. And Waters, he was still smoking. I mean, the guy, he used to say, "I don't smoke cigarettes. I am a cigarette." And he'd like put one out, and another one would go right in his mouth. So
Right.
he's smoking, he's directing. So I'm in the dodgeball scene, where it's the special ed kids fighting like sort of like the jockey preppy kids in a dodgeball game. And the best part of it, though, it was fun. We did takes all day, and met some great people, and just was so fun. But in the final scene, like at one point, the special ed kids come marching out. Ricky Lake is with one of them, and I'm with the cool kids. And we're making fun of them, and I'm kind of waving my hands up and down like, and we're calling them speds and all this stuff. But it looks like I'm pointing to my crotch. And I wasn't doing that on purpose. But in the movie, it looks like I'm going like, "Hey, check this out," or something. And so that was just totally unexpected when I finally saw it on the screen. But it's, I've showed my kids, and they're just like, "That's not you. You're too skinny." Like, yeah, I was 19. Yeah, I was skinny back then.
Give me a break.
But see, going to the movies, you've had this. I mean, you've seen yourself, and I'm sure it's still exciting and thrilling. But for the first time,
weird,
I'm sitting in a movie theater, and I had no idea if I was cut on the cutting room floor or whatever. But there I am in the dodgeball scene. And there's another quick shot of my face, like when the two girls are talking in a later scene. But it was just thrilling. It's just great to know that I did get my silver screen moment, So
yes,
and it's a great movie. It's a beautiful movie. It's got a great message. It's funny as hell. Divine, it was Divine's last movie, so I got to be part of that, and meet so many cool people. But just being in a John Waters movie like that just, I feel like I could just quit. Say, okay, I'm done with everything, man.
Right.
I got my one scene, and
Right.
I've met John because he hangs out. He's just a normal guy, but people leave him alone in Baltimore, for the most part. So he knows there's a local bar where he likes to hang out. So I'd see him there all the time, and people just leave him alone. It's great. That's why he loves Baltimore. It's just John Waters. Yeah, we all know him.
That's so nice too.
Yeah.
I bet he loves that.
He's super. I mean, one of the absolute funniest people. Just witty as hell. His books are great too. I love his books, almost as much as his movies. But just a kind, sweet person. Yeah, which is the best thing of all. That he's just his humor is not. It's never about making fun of people. It's about celebrating. people,
Exactly.
the weirdness, the outsiders, the
Yep.
freaks,
Yep.
and just pushing the boundaries of comedy and things like that. So yeah, but just yeah, but thank you for mentioning that. So if
Oh
anyone's ever
God.
watching Hairspray, not the musical version, but
Yeah.
the original 1988, I think it was. Yeah, so I was in my early 20s. It's just such a great film. Just and
I
it was
mean,
so much fun.
well, to me, he's one of the like I think because so much of filmmaking and art in general is taken from other countries in America. He's one of the few wonderful American artistic exports that will matter forever, I think. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Yep.
Like John Waters
Yep.
he'll be talked about if humans are lucky enough to be around for for as long as we're here, there will be John Waters, you know.
For absolutely, and similarly to the great weirding, there's been the great sort of like he's watched his humor, which was so outrageous and shocking, become just everywhere.
Yeah.
So he's experienced that too. That this thing that was so outrageous and weird and different. Now, South Park has people eating dog poop,
Yes.
and watching Divine eat dog shit was like beyond comprehension.
Yeah.
So it's funny that he's watched society kind of become more like his twisted vision
Right.
of things, which has forced him to like pull back. Like he's not the shock guy anymore,
No.
because everything's shocking. Like everything's weird and everything's shocking and
Yep.
outrageous. So he's like, all right, I did that, and now
Yeah.
the rest of the world has caught up with me. So I'm gonna go do different things now.
It's true. Like being mundane now is the new shocking, I think.
Right? Yeah, that's I'm like Mr. Normcore, when I go to this when I go to occult conferences or things like that. I'm sure people like who sometimes like who is this guy? He's not.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll wear a black T-shirt once in a while and things like that, but
Sure.
but
Sure.
I've always, as the world's gotten weirder, I'm like, it's hip to be square, man.
I think it actually finally is.
Yeah, you were right, Huey. You were just
God
ahead
damn
of
it.
your time, man.
Huey called it. Huey called it. Michael, this has been too much fun. I
Oh
absolutely
man,
love
for
talking to
sure.
you, man. We're kindred spirits. I remember when we met in Nashville, we started talking about My Bloody Valentine, and I'm like, anyone who gets My Bloody Valentine on a deep level is a friend of mine. I think I'm going through the shoegaze phase of my life right now. And it's the
Uh-huh.
only music that
Nice.
sounds good to me. Like Cocteau Twins, Jesus, Mary Chain,
Oh yeah.
Slow
Oh,
Dive, all
so
that
good,
good stuff.
man. Yeah. Well,
It
My
really
Bloody
is.
Valentine did deeply embed itself in my ears. I think they're the reason for a chunk of my hearing loss, at
Yep, them
least.
and Dinosaur Jr. have
Yeah.
destroyed my hearing forever.
Oh man, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
But
no,
worth
it's
it.
it's been great. I told somebody today, I was like, I met Steve, and you're just like one of those people. I felt like I've known you since like seventh grade. We've just
Right,
been,
dude.
and I don't always feel that with a lot of people. And as
Yeah.
I was just like, why? He's like a really. I could tell the guy has a good heart, and he's super funny, and I like people like that. But the fact that we've had sort of a parallel development and the books
Yeah.
we read and ended up in
Mm-hmm.
liking all this stuff. Yeah, really just like, damn, did we know each other before?
We
um,
might have, dude, but like I mean, like I get excited about new buddies, man, and you are
yeah,
you are a real highlight in my new buddy list, truly. Well,
same,
that's one
man,
of the that's
same.
one the weird thing is that like I've like yeah, I think the pandemic kind of caused me, I think out of sheer boredom and not having any work, to kind of come out of the paranormal closet.
Uh,
And the results have been quite amazing because while there's been some like, negativity out there like there is, I
sure.
have got to meet guys like you. And I feel like you and I, man, we're going to see each other at conferences. We're going to continue to drink beers in the parking lot till 3 a.m. and have great conversations. And that is the most exciting thing in life to me. So,
Yeah,
it's been
same,
just a
man.
real treat to get to know you over the last couple of years, buddy.
Same for sure, man. It's been a pleasure, and we gotta do this more often, for
Well,
real.
yeah, and also I want to have you back on because I mean, like usually I love I got to probably like 5 of the questions I had for you, and I had 25 written down. So I do want to, you know, I do eventually want to get your take on UFOs and
Oh
some of the
yeah.
high strange and stuff that I love talking about. I want to know where you stand on a lot of this stuff. I know you like it, and I know you know about it.
Yeah.
So
Well, I like many of us, I have my opinions.
yeah,
So
me too, and they're always changing. You know,
yeah,
I'll think
for real.
it's a month to month case for me.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Same.
Is there anything that you're working on that you'd like to talk about or plug really quick?
Yeah, as you know, I'm like a tarot guy. I
Yeah.
got my first tarot deck when I was 11, and it has fascinated me ever since. So I have a course for anyone that's like interested in tarot but might be intimidated by it, or you've read cards for a while but you just want to know more stuff. I've got this course that I really think is great, and because it covers the history, and it's like ecumenical. Like you don't have to be a witch to take it, or you don't have to believe in anything at all except learning how to look at these cards and the pictures in them and tell stories and help people. Like help people connect with themselves and look for patterns in their lives and ways forward and stuff like that. So if that sounds intriguing to anybody, I it's called the Art and Magic of the Tarot Foundations. Just look up Michael M. Hughes, and you can find my website and find it.
And I
But
will link that in the show notes, everyone.
I'm also doing a course on tarot magic, and
Ooh.
this I have not seen anyone do, especially in the way that I'm doing it. And I'm real excited about that. That's using the tarot and like the archetypal symbolism and things like that as a magical practice. And again, it's ecumenical. You can believe magic is psychological, you can believe it's spirits, you can believe it's your energy, but it's exciting to me. So I'm gonna launch the pre-sale for that soon. So that's what I'm really excited about right now.
Oh, though I can't recommend this stuff enough, I am going to take your tarot class first, and I'm going to take it over
Yes.
the Thanksgiving break because I have a week off with nothing to do, and I'm going to dive in and get real weird. So,
Awesome.
I mean,
Awesome.
weird myself. Not that your class is weird, but I mean, we're
Well,
talking
it
about
is.
tarot. It's got to be a little weird.
Of course it is. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, man. Well, Michael Hughes, you are an absolute gem. Thank you so much for your time. Time is the most precious thing in the world, so that you would share it with me really means a lot to me, man. Man,
I
I really
appreciate
appreciate it.
it, and same to you. Thanks. I'm so appreciative to get this opportunity just to hang out and talk shit with you again. So I really appreciate your time,
Oh, man.
and damn, I can't wait till we can hang out again.
Buddy, me too. Me too. Everyone, this has been High Strangeness, of course. I don't know why I've never said that at the end, but I'm just reminding people that you were listening to High Strangeness. I'm going to shut up. Everyone, have a great week. Peace out.
Rockin'.
Rocket.